Well, to coin a phrase, hello, good evening and welcome.
Good start.
Thank you very much, sorry. Welcome to, as many of you will recognise, whether for good memories or bad memories, welcome back to the Headmaster's Study here at St Peter's this evening for the very first in this new series of In Conversation With. Harry, it's an absolute pleasure to welcome Harry back, to Harry Gration, to come and kick off this series of events. Obviously, I want to say to welcome you back, but as many of you will know, Harry's sort of never really left in a way.
No, I don't think I have, but I do have memories, if I may say, Headmaster, of this study, because my first memory is with John Dronfield, who was one of the sort of legends of St Peter's, but his style of being a headmaster was slightly different to yours in all probability. I was invited in here for an interview. I came from Leeds Grammar School, and he wanted to know what kind of person he was getting. And it was a Saturday afternoon interview, and his secretary brought him in some tea and scones. And he said to me, "Would you like one of those scones?" And I said, "Well, I would love one." He said, "Well, you can't have one." So that sort of told me a little bit about his sense of humour as well.
Set you the tone. Well, and this evening you have wine.
I have wine,
So,
exactly, yes. Yes, very nice, thank you.
Well, having done a few Zoom meetings with Old Peterites, I can reliably inform you that there seems to be quite a lot of glasses of wine on Zoom conversations with Old Peterites. So I'm sure that many people at home are also having a glass of something too. And Harry, I mean, you've had the most astonishing life so far. You've crammed a lot in. We've obviously, you're currently president of the Old Peterite Club, which I know brings you a lot of pride and satisfaction. An astonishing career in broadcasting, much of which doesn't need to be said, but 42 years at the BBC. So primarily presenting Look North. You've covered every major news event that you can possibly imagine. You made MBE in 2013 for your services to broadcasting. You've covered 9 Olympics. You've done an enormous amount of charity work. Sport has always been a huge part of your life. And of course, you're also one of Her Majesty's Deputy Lieutenants for the county. So you've crammed a heck of a lot in. And I think one of the problems we're going to have this evening is actually not enough time to run through all the things, but we've already had some fantastic questions. So thank you very much to everybody who's been sending those in. Do keep using the chat function on Zoom to bring that in. So I think we'll kick off actually with questions from some names that may sound familiar to you. So our first question this evening is from Martin Fry.
Right, okay, hello Martin.
And Martin would like to know which masters made the greatest influence on the young Harry Gration and why?
I can say that quite easily actually, because my first real influence was David Kirby, who became the mentor of cricket, but also Queen's House as well. Guy Shuttleworth, another name, he was the mathematician, who I love very much indeed, because he was such a great guy. And the chaplain was Noel Kemp Welsh, and I got a very strong bond with him over the years as well. And I eventually became probably his most inefficient chapel monitor ever, I'm afraid, but I did try my best.
And what did the role of chapel monitor
Well,
involve?
what you had to do in those days was you had to prepare, I don't know if it's changed in any shape or form now, but you used to have to prepare the vestments for the various services that went on in midweek and also for the weekend as well. And obviously, if I'd been in action with cricket, rugby or hockey, sometimes I forgot to do that, and they had to be done in a very, very precise religious way. Yeah. So he was very long-suffering, but he was such a lovely man. And I did RS A-level with him, and I think it was the first time that the A-level had actually been used for many, many years there. And I felt very, very close to him in many ways. And that was something very, very special to me.
So an early preparation in preparing for big events in public, and with all the work that goes on behind the scenes.
In one sense, I think it was, because I think what St Peter's gave me didn't prepare me for broadcasting necessarily, but it gave me confidence, I think, to do things. I was lucky enough to be captain of cricket, and obviously my boy Harvey is going to be captain of cricket as well. And that joins a select group of people who have managed to do that, father and son, etc. And I think then I regarded that as something very special, because it was always to say thanks to the umpires, thanks to the people, thanks to the grounds staff, thanks to all the ladies who prepared all the teas without any thanks at all. And I took that on myself as being one of the roles of the cricket captain, and it gave me confidence to be able to speak in public, I think, when I actually left.
Yeah. And something in a lovely way, which I think that sense of a very solid community at the school, and it's not just about the teachers, the masters, as you might have called them, all the people who make the place work and pull together, and something certainly that during this last sort of 9 months, something that we've always been very aware of, but really noticed at the work that everybody has to put in to make St. Peter's the school that it is.
I think that's very important as well, especially at the moment, if I may say as well, because when you're in these wonderful, wonderful halls here, you're in a privileged environment. And I think to be able to give something back to the community is absolutely essential. And I think that's what St. Peter's does really well. I think even more so now than it used to. I think it got to be part of the whole fabric of the city of York. And you've only got to think about this. What would happen if York lost St. Peter's or Bootham or any of the schools, the Mount, etc.? The supply chain would be completely destroyed. We are very much a part of this community. We're very much a part of this city. And our history doesn't just stop at Guy Fawkes, you know. We are continuing to make history and make this place an environment that people want to come to. They really do want to come to the school.
Yes, and something that someone said to me some time ago, which really sort of struck, was when Guy Fawkes was a boy at the school itself had already been around for 1,000 years at that point. And of course, in recent months, the old ties, the long connections between school and Minster with the shared foundation, that's obviously come back in together. It's obviously from a sad reasons as to why that came about, but actually a new beginning and a new forging together of that relationship as well, with the anniversary in 2027.
Well, that's going to be great, isn't it? I mean, that's something I know that you are excited about now, and we in the Old Peterite Club are very excited about, because this can't just happen in a couple of years of preparation. This has got to start now, and so that when 27 comes, and also, of course, we've got the girls
2026,
50th anniversary. We've got 2 years of incredible celebration and something to be proud about what we've achieved here over so many years.
Yes, and as Harry says, I mean, 2026, that's an astonishing sort of anniversary for the school.
I missed
as well.
that, you see. I missed out on that because obviously it was all boys then. The best that we came to any kind of association with ladies, girls, was we had a science meeting with Queen Margaret of Escrick, and that was the first time I sort of had a kind of girlfriend, I think, really. And that was regarded as incredibly special, was that. And I think we've seen since how what a wonderful influence the ladies, the young ladies, I don't call them girls, the young ladies have been on this school, because they are vital to the future of this place as well.
And one of the things that I've been doing recently, as well as signing off a lot of Christmas cards, I'm always asked, and I take great delight in sending out birthday cards to all Peterites on significant birthdays. And it just so happens that I've signed or sent cards to 3 of Old Peterites ladies to celebrate their 50th birthday.
Brilliant, that's wonderful.
Which is a lovely thing. Which, a bit of a segue there, actually. So Andrew Powell.
Andrew, we used to call Andrew Poyd. I'm sure, Andrew, you remember that. Won't go into the details of that, but Andrew was from memory, was a great rugby player. Fierce rugby player.
And Andrew's question is, what's the biggest difference you see in the school between the time that you were both here together and now, and then in brackets, excluding the beneficial presence of the girls?
Well, I do think, actually, I've touched on that already, really. It's the community involvement, the way that this school is now very much part of the fabric of the city, even more so now. And I think that's been the one thing that I've noted, that the number of times that my boys, my twin boys, are out doing things, not just sport, it's various different things that they're doing, that I think has really highlighted how the school has developed over the years. But, you know, the girls certainly have helped it in all of that as well. And it's something that I think that I'm sad, really, I didn't experience that kind of thing. But lovely to talk to you in an indirect way, Andrew. So all the very best to you.
And another name which I think you'll recognise as well. So this is from I've got, in case people are wondering, when I'm looking down here, I've got this wonderful screen. So at this point, a big thank you. My study looks like an astonishing sort of TV studio. I wish we could have turned the cameras around, and we've got the team back next door as well. So there's a great screen down here prompt for me. So a question from Mike Jones.
Oh, Mike, yeah, but I think Mike was in Queens with me.
Very good. And so Mike would, I don't know whether this is one of these sort of innocent questions or a stitching you up question. He'd love to hear some memories of CCF camp at RAF Bimbra, please.
I don't know whether, Mike, you're referring to one thing. We were in the RAF section, if you remember, and the master who we had such affection for was Philip Harris. And Philip Harris went with the nickname Oink. I won't go into the details of that, but he used to crack these jokes as a chemistry master, and the whole class used to roar with laughter. And they weren't very funny jokes, but you could hear the school reverberate to this. And I was next to Philip Harris on a flight involving our 4 or 5 days at RAF Bimbra. And I wasn't very good. It was an old rattling cargo plane, and I was sick all over him. And he absolutely hated me for it because everybody else was sick as a result of that. So I didn't do very well in the RAF section, I'm afraid.
So the start of a chain reaction.
Absolutely.
A very unfortunate chain reaction. Well, I think Mike hopefully got the answer that he was looking
I hope
for
so,
there.
Mike. That's what you're asking for.
And sport, I mean, you mentioned David Kirby a moment ago, and I've been very fortunate to meet David and spend some time with him. I know that St. Peter's has a wonderful tradition of people who do remain totally embedded and remain part of the school. And David's service was incredibly long lasting.
Unbelievable, wasn't it? I mean, I did a feature for Look North about it a few years ago. Was it 50 years involved with the first team? It's just absolutely astonishing. But I think that's something else that you get. You know, you've got Paddy here now. How long's he been here? He's been here
37.
quite. I mean, his devotion is almost like a mini David Kirby, isn't it? And I'm sure he will go on to reach it if he wants to. But I think one of the great things about it is that that's what you get here. You get people who stay. You get people who want to help and want to continue what really is a remarkable communication, that they become part of the fabric. David Kirby, for example, I used to babysit for his children, you know, and it was a great way of getting to know him better as well. We had Robert Harding, of course, who was another legendary name here at the school. He was the head of sports, wasn't he? Yeah. And he did all the organisation of that, and became a great golfer as well. But, you know, these are the people who I look back on and think that is what St. Peter's is about. They come here and they don't want to leave.
Yeah. And it's interesting, and speaking of what it feels like to be a headmaster coming to a setting like that, and you see the boards outside the Mem Hall, and you know it goes back to 627 and Paul Innes, and then you sort of see your name. You've got to go an awfully long way down the list before you get. I've found it, I have to say, both a very welcoming place, but also that sense of tradition and that sense of engagement and long-standing. It actually, in some ways, makes it feel quite comforting to come to a place where I might have arrived a couple of years ago, already feeling incredibly settled and very happy. Rather than sort of feeling intimidated by it, it actually makes you feel welcomed yourself. And you know that you've got this tremendous group of people around who love the place to pieces, still, like yourself, still remain very engaged, become parents at the school as well. And so you do feel, as an incomer, as you might say, very much welcomed into a very thorough community.
Yeah, you embrace the history, don't you? And you feel a responsibility to be able to continue that history in your own way. And I think that's what this school has always meant to me. I've always been very proud to call myself, I call myself a Peterite. I try not to use old so much, because I think that basically, someone once said to me not so very long ago, once a Peterite, always a Peterite. And I think that is in your skin. It becomes embedded in you, and it becomes a badge of honour. Yeah. And it's certainly a badge of honour for me.
And an interesting question as well, because it was something that was going to come up as well, which is it's a question from Robert Hudson, actually. So thank you very much.
Robert.
Thank you for this. And it's about a little about your thoughts in your time that you have coming up now, just begun as president of the Old Peterite Club.
Well, John Cole,
or the Peterite Club, as you've...
Absolutely, the Peterite Club, yeah. I mean, John Cole last year did a fantastic job. And I just wanted to say, John, how so sorry we were that you couldn't take it through towards the end because of this wretched COVID. But thank you so much for everything that you've done for the club. I think it'd be nice to try and take it on a notch, because I think each president has tried to do that. And for me, it is to try and engage with a more vigorous variety of programs that appeal to more than just the golfer. Don't get me wrong, the golfers are very important. I'm going to be playing in every competition I can throughout the course of next year. But we're already exploring, with the help of a few ladies, some different ideas, some new ideas, and to try and get younger people to come along as well. There is a feeling, is there not, that sometimes the formal dinner, that by that I mean the black tie and the 3-course blah blah blah, has definitely got its place in life. But there are sometimes people now who want to just meet for a drink and have a chat with the headmaster about things, and maybe we can encompass both on a similar evening, because I know that when we come to London, I mean, the London meeting that should have happened in November last year was going to be 60 or 70 people there, which is wonderful. I have a feeling that we might just be able to get nearly 100 there next November, and to make that into something that is a little bit special and a little bit different. But I say to every Peterite, Old Peterite, if you have any ideas, just get in touch with us. My lovely Philippa will sort you out straight away and tell you about things, because we want new ideas.
Yes, and thank you. And also just to say, an opportunity from myself as headmaster, I value the Old Peterites, or the Peterites, as Harry would say, a tremendous amount. And always remember, this is your school. You will always have a home here, and you will always be very, very welcomed, both back here at school, but also at events down in London as well. And my thanks also to John Coles, but also and the whole committee, who have made myself and my wife Harriet just so welcome as well. So thank you for that. And talking about sort of Old Peterite things, there's a bit of a Johnny Bairstow connection going to come in slightly here, because of course David Kirby, a bit of a mentor to Johnny when he was coming his time through the school. And the first time I got to meet Johnny was actually at a Pandas dinner that we had in the Bedden Hall, and Johnny just flown back in from India from the IPL. I think he'd been in the country for about 24 hours, and he very kindly turned up. And again, another example of the Peterite community, and made sure that he spoke to every single one. It was to celebrate the first 11 hockey's unbeaten season, and he made sure he spoke to everybody. But that was a great example for me. But there is a question. It's from Gordon Gildner.
Gordon Gilder, yes.
And so the question goes,
Hi, Gordon.
does Harry remember, when you hear the rest of the question, does Harry remember playing for the Panda Hockey Club at Bridlington and getting knocked out by a hockey ball, recovering after 5 minutes, and then getting up and scoring from the resultant penalty?
I was always a bit of a drama queen, Gordon, as you well know. Yes, I do remember that vaguely. I also remember the Pandas Hockey Club, you know, is a very, very special organisation, and I was secretary of it, and I was a very, very badly organised secretary for it. And I actually produced my own fixture list, because I inherited a club without any money at all. And it was on a John Bull printing set. Some of you may remember it. And it was the most pathetic fixture list that you've ever seen in terms of how it looked in the end. But that gave me so much enjoyment, did that. I loved working alongside or playing alongside people like Billy Cloughton, Bill Hudson, who remains a great pal of mine, Gordon, great goalkeeper, etc. Mark Byrne, etc. The Pandas Hockey Club is something which continues. It is still very, very strong, and that is something that I hope that I can really, really latch onto if I'm ever allowed to do a single thing in this ridiculous year of being president.
And let's all look forward with hope and optimism to 2021. I don't think there'll be many sort of tear-stained handkerchiefs to 2020 in some ways. But
I will say this about Gordon. Gordon's a big York City fan, and I hope, Gordon, that I can come back and watch a match with you down at the new stadium if ever that blooming place opens. And we can see York City doing well. I think they do already. We're all right this year, actually.
It will be, but it will be slightly strange not to hear, as you can from school, of course. You can hear the sound when the Minster men are playing at home.
Exactly, yeah.
And to
you
see
can't at the moment, that's for sure.
No, absolutely not. And just touching on the Pandas again, I'm the very proud owner of a Pandas club tie, which has a sort of distinctive sort of pattern and logo of 2 feet.
That's right, 2 feet, yes, it did indeed. And we've lost the driving force behind Pandas, John Shoopsmith, God bless him, fairly recently. And he was the one who really got me involved in it as well. And I just hope that, in the memory of John, we can really sort of make the coming year, if hockey is allowed, which I hope it will be, a special one for him as well. And I'm sure all Pandas would like to get together for their annual dinner and show appreciation of him, because I think that is something
which every single one of us would like to do. Yeah, it would be tremendous. And I think we are optimistic. I think at the moment we're waiting for the RFU to give some guidance. Hockey does look very positive indeed. I think we might be looking to have something of a rugby season at the start of next term, and obviously we'll then move into the sevens season as well. And we brought in talking about Harvey, your son, the sort of current captain of cricket at the school, and we had a fixture list lined up for the first half. So very unusually, the first wicket of the year was actually cut in September. And I have to say, a pretty amazing wicket it looked as well. And then, of course, the weather quite amazingly knew whether it was a Wednesday or a Saturday, because the rain came on our fixtures day. So we didn't quite get the cricket fixtures we were hoping to have. But I think as we go through in the start of 2021 and going on forward, we should see something of a fixtures programme. I think it's good coming back. The nice thing about this school as well is it's got a wonderful association with York Sports Club, not just for rugby, but also for cricket. And Nigel Durham in particular, it helps us keep that flow of young talent going through. And it's so important is that to be able to continue your cricket when things end, you know, in July or whatever. It's really important. Is that? Yeah, and that club sometimes feels like St. Peter's on a Sunday. It is, isn't it? It's wonderful. It's wonderful. And of course, I mean, you're very fortunate because obviously, I mean, sport is one of your major passions, but likewise the performing arts and music as well. I know that's something else that you're very, very keen on. Very much so. And I think that if I have a regret about my life at St. Peter's, and this is quite sincere, is that I just did not embrace in any shape or form the music of this organisation. To give you a specific example, the music teacher at the time was a guy called Freddie Wayne, lovely guy, very eccentric guy. And I was told by many people, go and learn the piano. So I tried to go and learn the piano. My dad could play the piano quite well. So I decided to try and learn. And after about 6 lessons, he actually rang my dad up and said, would you please ask Harry not to learn how to play the piano? I can't teach him. I was not very good at that kind of thing. But I do miss that seriously. So one of the things that I love about this school now is, yes, sport's important. Of course, rugby's important, hockey, cricket, and everything to do with it. But the other side of it is the incredible work that goes on in, you know, Mr. MK's department there. It's just unbelievable, all the staff there. I have to say a very sincere thank you to all of them, because they are quite remarkable. And in terms of sort of the development of the whole person, because I often sort of people say to you, well, what's the school all about? And sometimes I say, well, you could ask a question in a different way and say, imagine a parallel universe, and we don't send children to school at all. We sort of go Spartan or something, just unleash them on the hillsides and see how it turns out. And I always feel that in some ways it's about having an astonishingly fun, action-packed time whilst you're at school. But it's about trying to think what's going to help you to have a really satisfying and exciting and fulfilled life. And some people say, quite rightly, sport produces character. Well, some people say sport reveals character as much as it produces it. But when you think about something like music and the performing arts, in a hockey game, for example, you miss a tackle, well, you've got another chance to get back in. In music or in drama, you've got that one moment, and if you've got to hit that note, or you've got to hit that line, there's no kind of fluff moment where you can cover it over and come back again. So as you would say, so tremendous things that you can learn from music and sports and all the other things. And that's the idea of the full liberal education that you get, and hopefully we'll continue to do that for many years. Absolutely. Now, and of course, you can talk about teaching with a certain sense of inside knowledge, because you were, of course, a teacher for 4 years. Yes, I was. When I left university, and I really wanted to do broadcasting, but my mum and dad were very concerned that it wasn't a very easy way to get into, which it wasn't at the time, I have to be honest with you. So I became a teacher, and I loved it. I became head of history at a school called Regillian School, which was in Rothwell near Leeds, and I was head of history within about 3 years. So I was on a good sort of run of success there. And I loved history teaching, my role as a teacher, particularly history, which still remains a passion for me. And it all ended, really, when Radio Leeds was starting to really gain impetus, and I was working more and more for them at weekends. And I was just suddenly offered, when the sports editor went ill for 3 months, I was offered a 3-month contract. That was it, a 3-month contract
to go and take over full-time to do sport at Radio Leeds. And I therefore had to make the decision of giving up a very safe, probably a job I may just have ended with now, that kind of role, or take a chance, a gamble. And I took the gamble, and 42 years later, it sort of worked out for me. But I also think it taught me something as well, because it taught me, I never ever wanted to accept, no, that's not possible for you to do, because your route into journalism needs to be through a newspaper, through this, through that, through the other. I said, no, I don't think you need to do that. I think you need to have a passion for it, and ultimately an ability, I hope. And I always say to people, if your instinct is assured, then go for your instinct. You have to take a gamble from time to time.
Yes. And the path not taken and sliding doors and all those things. But I don't think you would look back on your life with any regrets at all.
No, I don't at all. And I had one wonderful moment, which I swear to you is absolutely true, is this. I was working for Radio Leeds at weekends. And in 1975, I was head of history at Meridian School. And I got a call about 3:20 when the school ended from the news editor at Radio Leeds to say, can you get down to Ellen Road pretty quickly, because we are under the impression that Brian Clough is going to be sacked, and I want you to get there. Well, my mode of transport then was a Honda 50 motorbike. So I got on my Honda 50 with my tape recorder strapped to the back. I always took it everywhere I went. And I got to Ellen Road, and I just got to the moment where Brian Clough was walking from the director's room to his office, which was outside of the perimeter. And I raced up to him and said, Brian, can you give me 2 words for Radio Leeds? And he did.
And are they repeatable?
I think you probably know what they were. I
certainly, and you probably loved the Martin Sheen film,
absolutely,
the Damned United.
It was fantastic. You know, it was just unbelievable. Was that very, very true as well? Because obviously I got to know Billy Bremner, Norman Hunter, Jack Charlton, Paul Reed. I got to know them so well. They were wonderful, wonderful characters, but difficult characters as well. And Brian Clough went in with an attitude there of I'm God, and you like it or lump it, and they did not like it at all.
Yeah, so what's the famous line about, would you consider yourself to be the best football manager in the country? And I think it was, I'd certainly put myself in the top 1.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it was the famous answer, yeah. Yes, and so following the trials and tribulations of the mighty Whites is a good metaphor for the ups and downs of life as well. As you've sort of gone through life, perhaps coming down to the time at the BBC, and maybe there is a segue there, the famous thing about the BBC, to educate, to inform and to entertain. So there is perhaps something...
And probably to irritate as well.
To irritate.
Because there is that, as you well know now, this is not an organisation that is as comfortable with itself as it should be. I have noticed a difference, particularly over the last 4 or 5 years, I have to say. On regional news, we've always been, I think, greatly loved. I don't think there's much to rattle cages as far as we're concerned. We generally just give the news, and we do hard interviews, as anybody can do hard interviews. But I think recently there have been too many instances of presenters going, what I would say, off script and doing their own thing. And you've only got to look now at the appreciation for the BBC. It's now behind Sky, it's now behind ITN, it's behind Channel 4. And that's for trust and authoritativeness, really. So it's really quite difficult to come to terms with a change in people's attitude.
Yes. And do you discern a sort of difference between the regional structure of the BBC?
Yes, I do.
For example, look north.
Yeah, I do. I think we are okay. I think if you were to say now, if you were to get somebody coming to school now to give an interview with you, and they said, we're from BBC News or we're from Panorama or whatever, you might think very carefully about whether you wanted to do that interview or what exactly was the ulterior motive. You would think that. And I think that slightly upsets me, because it seems now the vogue to do hard, aggressive interviews just for the sake of it, to get the one smart-ass question in that rattles the politician before they've even sat down. And I think that's probably something that the BBC might regret in the years to come, when, who knows, the licence fee may go.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you've occupied for such a long period of time as well, a much loved status in Yorkshire through the BBC and through the many other things that you do. And to give you some blushes, I suppose, a little bit, I suppose you've never, I suppose, seen yourself as the story.
No,
But being there and I do remember this, as we were coming through those last episodes of Look North, coming towards your very final broadcast, and the very final one, of course, you were actually out there on the stump. It looked pretty cold, and you were reporting live. And from recollection, I think your final sort of sign-off comments, they were all to do with the people of Yorkshire and your affection for them and your enjoyment of telling their stories.
Yeah, I think that's a genuine thing as well, and it's funny as all that, because you are in a position as a presenter to be able to influence a program in the way that you present it. And people don't realize that, but you are able to do that. And I think you've got to balance the way that you present items in a way that is fair, so that you can actually look at things very, very carefully. And people at the end of it can say, well, all right, I might not have agreed with that line of questioning, but I know that that will be balanced tomorrow night, because we'll have X in and you'll do the other side of it. And I think that's the important thing as far as I'm concerned. I've never regarded one story and then moved on to the next one. I've always regarded things like the Joe Cox murder, the Bradford City fire, the Hillsborough disaster, as assaults on my Yorkshire, and they've affected me significantly emotionally. And other broadcasters go from one story to another story to another story. It just gushes over them, really. And I've never been very good at allowing that to happen to me.
Have you ever found it very difficult to hold yourself together with,
Yes.
with some of those things in terms of, and you know, for example, the miners' strike must have been a
the miners' strike was very
big
difficult.
event to cover.
I mean, here I am coming from a public school and finding myself feeling incredibly sorry for a group of miners in Grimethorpe. This was back in 1982-3, was it? Something like that. I was pictured in the local newspaper at a soup kitchen on a Saturday morning, helping out, because I felt so sorry for them. My editor called me in to his study, his office, his office, the next day, and said, you can't do that. You cannot show yourself to be sympathetic to that particular story. And I suppose it was a learning curve for me, but I still found that difficult, because I wasn't saying that the government was wrong in what it was doing. I was sympathizing with a group of people who were in desperate straits for a Christmas lunch. It was really, really as simple as that for me.
Yeah. And we have a message from a former colleague. So from Lara Noy Scott. It's great to see Harry on screen again. She says, miss sitting next to you on the sofa, Harry, but lucky enough to be watching you from the Manor at St. Peter's tonight, where of course Laura's one of the house parents of the Manor, along with her husband.
Yeah, I presented with Lara. She's a lovely lady. I love her to bits, you know that, Lara, anyway. And yeah, we presented together for a year, and she was a joy to work with. And it was such great fun. Is that, you know, it's a small world, isn't it, to realise that, you know, St. Peter's becomes you know, so closely enmeshed with things.
There's something of a bungee cord around the place, I think, yeah, in terms of how you come back in. Going back slightly to this question about broadcasting. So a question from Jamie Hunt. So Jamie, thank you very much. And the question, Harry, is have you ever been lost for words?
I don't know whether I have really been lost for words. I think that just occasionally emotions do get to you. You were talking about that before, Jeremy. And for me, the Bradford City fire was probably the most emotional thing I've ever been through on an individual basis, because I'd got people tickets for that match, because it was against Lincoln City. It was a big match, and two of them were very seriously injured as a result of that. And I sort of felt a bit guilty about it. And I can remember breaking down doing the piece to camera on the Monday night after the fire, and I was really, you know, ashamed of myself for doing it. And whilst the editor, who was quite a hard guy, sort of said, we should pull yourself together, you shouldn't do these things. the audience, of course, had a very different attitude. They could see the pain that I was going through. So I was lost for words with emotion on that occasion. And actually, if you look at my last broadcast, I was a gibbering wreck for a part of it. But you do sort of pull yourself together in the end, and you learn from those errors. I've never regarded them as errors. I think they're just part of being human, to be honest.
It must be a very difficult balance to get, because I mean, you clearly are. You're a very human man.
I'm a very emotional guy.
You have emotions. It's part of what makes you the person that you are. And I suspect it must be tricky, that sense of where you're talking about something which you believe about very strongly, and you do have an emotional response to. And if you push that completely away to one side, I suspect it would sound a bit wooden and a bit dead on air. That would come across, and yet too much coming in. That must be one of the most challenging things for a broadcaster. I
think it is. I think it's very easy, to do a really hard interview. People seem to think it isn't. It's dead easy. You're just aggressive all the way through. You've got a number of facts and figures in front of you. You can turn anything to the way you want it to. I've always been taught to listen to the answer before you launch yourself into the next question. And I think you've got to be very careful of that, because I think the one thing that is the genre at the moment is that people seemingly want hard, uncomfortable interviews for all the politicians. Well, actually, I don't think they do. I think they want a fair interview and a hard interview, yes, but not aggressive. I think that's the difference.
And presumably, if you do go in that way, it becomes adversarial. You don't necessarily get good answers either.
Adversarial, exactly.
So from Tim Sykes. So thank you for this question. What's the most dangerous situation that you've been in on TV?
On TV, well, I've been involved with the Bradford Riots back in 2002, where there were some very uncomfortable people behind me, and were threatening to throw stones, etc., etc. I was very conscious of that, but I just tried to sort of concentrate on what I was doing. I was once hit by a snowball whilst I was in Sheffield doing an outside broadcast from some people about 20-30 yards away, and I just knocked that as a header in the end, which was okay. But nothing like my experience of going to Afghanistan, which I went to in 2012, 2013. I'd done too many repatriations of people who had lost their lives, and I wanted desperately to go to Afghanistan. And I was lucky enough to go there for the closing of Camp Bastion. And I got to go on patrol with some lads from the Yorkshire Regiment. And I also saw firsthand the wonderful work that Infill Barracks and the medical corps did there. And they had this philosophy. They had 2 Afghan soldiers who had been blown up by a bomb whilst we were there. They brought them into the theatre. They were in a terrible state. We weren't allowed to film it, obviously. But a person said to me, they both have a pulse. They will both survive. It's as simple as that. And that to me showed their professionalism as well. And that's fear. That would be real fear if you were in that situation. Yes. So I managed to avoid that.
Quite astonishing. And Mike Ranson.
Mike, how are you?
Mike has come in to help me with the answer to one of these questions. He says, Harry, I remember you being lost for words when I missed the 2-foot putt against Giggleswick to win the match.
I was indeed. Yeah. We've been playing a lot of golf together, Mike and I, I'm sure. But he's a great golfer, is Mike. Very solid, and I'm all over the place.
Army golf, left, right. Yeah, absolutely. So, and then a question from Tim Sykes. I was at the Pantomime last year.
You were.
And, oh, I certainly was, Harry. And yeah, very fetching in a dress. You look too. I must say,
Thank you.
Great set of pins, as the old phrase goes. So there's a question from Tim Sykes. How did you get roped into pantomime?
Oh, this was ridiculous. It was Berwick back in, was it 2000? I think I've done 19 years with him, and it was a one-off. And then it got quite a few laughs first year, so we kept doing it, and he kept developing the theme of it, and it was just great fun. I got so much reaction from the audience, and I loved doing it. And I got dressed up in things from, I used to say, fishnet tights to all kinds of ridiculous things. And that has gone. That my career as a pantomime dame is definitely over. I can assure you of that.
and moving sort of slightly sort of broader there, your time doing the Olympics.
Great times they were wonderful times. I was lucky enough to cover 9 Olympics. I did 5 summers and 4 winters. They were just incredible experiences, and I met closely and got on very well with one of the legends of sport, a guy called David Coleman. And in Seoul for my first Olympics, he sort of took me under his umbrella, became a bit of a mentor for me. And we used to go out running. He was a big runner. We used to go out running every single day before we started work. And we got to know each other really well. And it was just a great thing to be able to talk to someone like that. And of course, I also got to know Des Lynam, who was always, to me, the greatest. Des was always the best, the best sort of link man there was. And he became a big pal. I'll tell you one story about me being in Nagano in '98. And I was covering the winters there. And it was a terrible, terrible day. And all of the main showpiece events had been cancelled. And by that was mainly ski jumping. That was the thing that was going to occupy them for 3 hours. So I was left really just expecting to do reportage on the cross-country, 20-kilometre cross-country biathlon. Well, I'd never even seen an event take place, let alone actually having to commentate on it. To which the editor then said, "There's nothing else going on. You have to do commentary on this." And I said, "Well, how can I do that? Who's going to help me?" He said, "Well, we've got your friend John Shrewsbury opposite you." And John Shrewsbury's claim to fame was he was the producer of Match of the Day. So he knew as much about cross-country skiing as I did. We did 2 hours between each other on this event. We were just giving facts and facts out. And at the end of it all, they all said, "You did a really good job." And Des Lynam actually rang me up at 2 o'clock in the morning his time. He said, "Harry, that was the biggest load of bollocks I've ever seen in my life."
But no dead air, which of course...
No dead air.
So I'm told is the biggest sin in broadcasting.
You can't do that. You can't have dead air. We talked, and it was probably a load of rubbish. I'm not sure you get away with it now, because with social media, of course, people are experts on everything. And at the time, you didn't have to worry about that particular problem, but now that is a real issue.
Yes, sort of instant feedback, as they say. And so slightly linked in, I mean, what's been your biggest blooper on TV?
I think the biggest blooper was working alongside my dear friend Judith Stamper back in, 1982, 83. We were talking, I think, about the miners' strike, and we were doing a live interview down the line with Dennis Skinner, who was affectionately known as the Beast of Bolsover, and he hated the BBC even then. And we had a very, very bad line, and we kept sort of saying, "I'm sorry, Dennis, we'll have to come back to you later." And he said, "Typical BBC, you're trying to silence us." I said, "We're not trying to do that at all." And we got a new microphone brought in by a very inexperienced floor manager. And I swear to you, this is true, because it won the Golden Balls on the Noel Edmonds show about a week later. He crawled on his hands and knees with this microphone, and the microphone was clunking all the way through. And he got underneath the table and raised it like Excalibur and put it down. And Judith and I, being hardly used to presenting at all the program, we just continued as if nothing had happened. And it got hundreds of appreciation, hundreds of complaints. And that was really a cringing moment, was that.
I remember it, because I think it cropped up on It'll Be All Right on the Night.
It did indeed.
And shows like that as well. A few
times, yeah.
And of course, sports broadcasting lost one of its most distinctive voices and famous people. So from Bill Hudson, good evening, Bill. Good to see a question coming in from you. Hope you're very well. Just wondering, did you ever meet Peter Allis yourself?
Yes, many times, yeah. I covered the Open in Scotland in the mid-90s. I had a good run because I did the Open, I did a Grand Prix, I did Wimbledon. I did Wimbledon for 4 years, actually. And I met Peter Allis, and he was one of these sort of gods of broadcasting, which you look back on with some affection, but I doubt whether that will ever be allowed again, that kind of situation. David Coburn was very much a similar person. But he used to have his own idiosyncrasies. And all he used to do at the end of the day was he would commentate, and he would have a bottle of claret next to him, rather like we are here, a nice glass of wine. He'd have a bottle of claret for the closing stages of the Open at times. And I just thought, well, that was a moment that, you know, you have to save. You would never be allowed to do that. But he just had this ability to be able to make remarks, which now, of course, would not be allowed because they are regarded as non-PC. And you've got to be so careful about what you say now. Everything you say. And I was only thinking about Peter Allis, you know, yesterday about that. He wouldn't give a monkeys about what he said, but he got himself into trouble in the later years for the things that he did say, which were just golfing terminology. But you can't get away with it now.
But also some lovely colour as well. I think that he was the author of that lovely phrase, the human herbaceous border.
That's right.
It's his description of the crowds lining the fairways, all their different coloured jumpers and so forth. Those are lovely, lovely memories. I've been very fortunate. I've played a lot of golf over the years down at Trevose Golf Club down in Cornwall near Padstow, where his son Gary is, of course, was the professional for a long, long time. And I remember Peter came down and did one of his Around with Alice, that lovely show he had. And it strikes me that there's a similarity in your broadcasting style and his broadcasting style in the sense of the conversational approach.
You try and do that. I mean, a lot of people probably don't realise that the real hard work, as far as news is concerned, is to try and make the script that you're reading, which is news, and you can't mess about with that, into a conversational piece rather than a straightforward outpouring of fact, because that's boring for everybody. So you try and make it relevant to the area, and that's what I used to spend a lot of time on. And then the second half of the programme was very much a sort of ad-lib area. But he was so good at that, was Peter. He was a very, very nice man as well, I have to say, a very nice man.
And my problem is saying, unfortunately, we're moving to the last 5 minutes now.
Okay,
so we've got a few more questions. I'll tell you, we have a question that's come in from the head of St Ollu's, Peter's 813, which I'm not sure we are going to answer, but I will also state that for the record, the question was, who was the naughtiest schoolboy, Harry or Mr Walker? Given that you have a glittering career on which to look back.
That's not from Andy Faulkner.
It is from Andy Faulkner.
Yeah, I thought it would be.
And I'm not sure I would say glittering career ahead, but I do certainly have a career ahead. I'm not sure I'm willing to disclose get into a competition with you about the things I did at school.
No, I'm not sure that I was ever in this study for a telling off. I think I might have been an individual telling off. I think I might have been in here with a group telling off for an attitude or something. And I think that happened in a chapel assembly. But I don't think I was ever actually taken to task personally, which probably makes me a goody two-shoes, really.
Well, and I'll dart away from that question as well by sort of simply saying that when my father dropped me off at a school I started at when I was 13 years old, all he said was, don't forget, the rules only apply when you get caught, and I never expect a phone call.
Exactly.
And 5 years later, he still hadn't had a phone call by the time I left with an unscathed CV. or just very, very adept, I think. Very adept indeed. So what we have, we got a lovely question as well from Andrew Powell. He said, we had the pleasure of having Harry on South Today for some years. What are his memories of those days? And
I loved it.
For brevity, just one or two memories.
Yeah, I loved it. I had 4 years down there working with Sally Taylor. It was a great experience for me because it allowed me to continue my missionary work down south, about Yorkshire. But it was such a good time. My wife worked for the BBC. She worked on Newsnight and the main news programs, and she used to travel from where we lived in Wherwell to London every day, and it was a hard slog for her. For me, it was just a great place to work. I love living down there, and it was really, really special to be able to see the difference in people. And I will say this, that when I came back in '99 here, I just noticed how much friendlier people, friendlier, more direct people were here in the north of England. And it is quite a profound difference, really.
It is, and I would concur in a very positive way, because moving up to Yorkshire, and I was wondering, how will life be and so forth. And one of the things I've found, I think it's been very good for me in the sense that I sometimes even say, I've gone a bit south, and what I mean by that is, as soon as I start sort of cloaking everything with, would you mind terribly if, rather than just simply getting to the point of something, and getting on with it. I suspect one of the reasons why more gets done up here is that people do tend to just crack
but
on.
you were welcome straight away. I'm sure you felt this as well.
Very
And
much so.
I think this is one of the things that people always say about Yorkshire. It is a welcoming place. It's the kind of place that people come to with some trepidation, perhaps, the bluntness, the sort of forthright speech, etc. But ultimately, people do have hearts of gold, I think. Yeah. And I was lucky enough to experience that down south as well, I have to say. Yes. I met a lot of good friends down there who are still keeping touch. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, we're being asked to sort of to pull things together slightly. I did say at the beginning, I thought, you know, this could turn into the start of a series. I mean, Harry, gosh, we haven't even touched so many of the topics and the prompts. I do apologise. We've had some other questions from Bob Pullen, who says, who does Harry consider the outstandingly talented TV interviewers today? If you'd like to.
Yes, I have a look. I do like Jon Snow, but I do think he's just going a bit over the top now. I think all interviewers are trying to outdo each other, and I think that's a little bit sad. Paxman was the same. He became a bit of an actor as well. So I think that's a bit disappointing, is that one.
Yes. And by complete quirk, I've two of my previous studies as different headmasterships. So Jon Snow's bedroom was my study when I was a housemaster at Ardennigh College in Sussex a long time ago. And when I was at Berkhamsted School, my study was Graham Greene's bedroom.
Very good.
Quite remarkable. And yes, and down the bottom of the stairs, because it was in the old headmaster's house, was the green baize door, the famous green baize door going through to the other side. So, and we also have a little sort of question that's come up. So I think we've got to go for this one really. So from Robert Hudson again, a cheeky question, he says, is for Harry regarding Queen Margaret's. Did you visit the local pub in Escrick Village?
Of course I did, many times. You know that.
And no shortage of great pubs up in this part of the world either. It has to be said. Well, how are you finding life? I mean, it's only been a couple of weeks now, but life is sort of in front of the camera again, but having stepped away from the sofa.
Well, I don't miss it. I've done my bit there. I really genuinely don't miss it. I think I've done as much as I can do. I'm really looking forward to this role I've got here as the president of the OP Club. And I just wonder if I could make an appeal to those who are still left after this marathon. If you feel you can support us at an event, please come along, because we really are going to try and do things a little bit differently from time to time. We'll still have the traditional things, don't get me wrong, but we're going to try and do one or two things differently. And if you feel you might like to give us a go, please do so. We're having a gin tasting in a week or so's time, online, Zoom. If you want to join us with that, it's from Harry, who's doing looks after York Gin. Yeah. Harry's putting that on for us. So please get in touch with us, and we're going to have an online binge that night, which should be a bit of fun, a Zoom night.
And totally selflessly, and in the line of duty, I have tried York Gin. And it's good. It's a cracking drop. It really is. It's a lovely product as well. So, I think that the last question really should go to Helen. To your lovely wife.
All right.
And whether it's a question or a message, I think we'll let you decide. It says, so Helen asks, will retirement improve your washing up?
Do you know, how can you get washing up wrong? That's what I can't understand. But apparently I do. I don't rinse it off properly. So probably I will get a little bit better, but not much.
More opportunity as well.
Thank you for that penetrating question, Helen.
And Helen, we'll be getting Harry sort of back home to you sort of a bit earlier than if you've been doing the late show at Look North. Well, thank you everybody for joining us this evening. It's been wonderful. Thank you for the questions. It's been tremendous having those and giving us a sense of interacting with you at home. I just want to echo Harry's words about you're so welcome. Your engagement with the school is massively welcomed. All events, any engagement at all, I'd love to hear from you as well. Look forward to seeing you as we go through into next year and life gets a bit back to normal. But for now, from all of us here at St. Peter's, Harry, one last enormous thanks to you, and can I just say how much I'm looking forward to working with you. I'm Harry's vice president as well. I get a couple of honorific titles here, and apparently I'm vice president of the Old Peterite Club. It's an honour to serve as your VP.
Can I just have the last word, just to say
absolutely
thanks everybody, to all the staff here, every part of the staff here who worked in a very difficult situation throughout the course of this term. And I say staff generally as well, because it's not just the teaching staff, it's the ancillary staff, it's everybody who worked at this place, and you all deserve a fantastic holiday at Christmas, and let's hope for some normality.
Thank you. Harry, you're a true gentleman and a true Peterite. Thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you.